What we're going to discuss today is something I actually get quite a few questions on, and I would love, especially Ryan, to go into big detail and explain really what it's all about and kind of, I guess, I don't want to say debunk some of it, but tell the truth to it all. So we're going to talk about bioavailability and or absorption rate of nutrients, supplements. If you've ever heard the term bioavailability, you will see it sometimes on a lot of supplements, and that's what we want to discuss. But really, in layman's terms, bioavailability is how well your body absorbs and uses a supplement when it enters the body. Now, when you think about that, there's got to be lots of variability to that because everybody's so unique. And why one body might be able to absorb more vitamins and nutrients from something, another body can't, whether it's disease states, whether it's microbiome disturbances, leaky gut, all kinds of factors affect how well our body actually absorbs a nutrient. So when you see this claim or this label about 95% bioavailability, you have to think to yourself, what's the truth into that? And what's really the science behind it? And that's where this guy over here is going to take over.
Oh, my turn over. So, all right, so let's talk about this. So bioavailability is the rate and extent to which a drug or a chemical molecule reaches a site of action. So it's desired site of action. And traditionally speaking, it has a lot to do with absorption, but it really does have a lot to do with like the whole range of pharmacokinetics is the kind of the term that they've coined for it, where it's absorption. Well, really, it starts with like dissolution, like how is the drug dissolving if it's in a solid state, like a tablet, it dissolves, right? Then absorbs, then it has to distribute out through our bodies, then it's metabolized either by the liver or other system, and then it's excreted or eliminated from the body. So that whole kind of thing is the pharmacokinetics, and that is sort of really the bioavailability. That's kind of what makes up bioavailability. Again, coined from pharmaceuticals because the pharmaceutical industry has to prove bioavailability. So it is a real term. I know it's super confusing. I know it's thrown around a lot. There's a lot of misunderstanding around it, but it really is kind of founded in the pharmaceutical side. And remember, the FDA regulates pharmaceutical drugs. They make sure, well, they regulate dietary supplements too, but they make sure they have to prove bioavailability. A new drug application or a supplement or an investigative new drug, they have to prove it, with some exceptions, of course. So in the world of dietary supplements, we have certainly borrowed from some of the pharmaceutical process to show bioavailability. And that's some of the stuff we'll talk a little bit about today. But I want you guys to remember bioavailability applies virtually to everything we put in our body, or on our body. It could apply to our foods. So like plants, right? Meats. If you eat a plant and you hear things like, oh, it has anti-nutrients, things that block or kind of suppress some of the bioavailability. There are, so again, it's a whole thing, right? Like, and we'll go through that a little bit today. We'll kind of talk a little bit about, I'll sort of go into the weeds. I try to keep it under 15 minutes, but go into the weeds about it. But at the end of the day, I do think that for people that are consuming dietary supplements, there are supplements to food. We are regulated under the FDA, but we are not required to prove bioavailability.
So does that mean that some of these supplements that slap on the label with a little asterisk, of course, 95% bioavailability, like, does that have relevance to it? If they're not testing like pharmaceuticals are?
I mean, look, could I say I'm guilty in some regard? I'm going to say I hate when I see that, but I'm also guilty at the same time. I'm going to tell you that we use a highly bioavailable form of magnesium, but I'm just borrowing on the literature that the big pharmaceutical companies have already shown us. But some companies, and I know there's one here as an example, we're going to show that. It bothers me because I know it's just a marketing ploy. There's no science behind it. They haven't paid to have studies done in vivo, which is in the body. Some companies, here's a little bit about background. So some companies that are dietary supplement companies that have a solid dosage form, like a tablet, they may want to pay a little bit of extra money and show the dissolution studies to show that the tablet does break down in the stomach when it goes down in there, because that is an important first step. But most do not. Like in our case, we have powders, we have capsules, we have a soft gel. You don't have to. They're going to dissolve, no doubt about it. We don't have to do dissolution studies. But nobody's going to be doing bioavailability studies for the most part in dietary supplements, for the most part. Some of the ingredient companies might be, but let's use this as an example, Lisa. I want to show this. I think this is important. All right, here we go. What do we have here, Lisa?
That's a liposomal glutathione.
So can you guys see liposomal glutathione? I'm not even sure who it's made by, but Lisa has it here. Seems like, I guess she's been using it or whatever. Glutathione is a great antioxidant. Historically terrible bioavailability. I would love to have glutathione in our lineup, but I'm not convinced that I can get you guys what you deserve for the money you're going to pay for it. So on this label it says liposomal. Well, first of all, they chose liposomal because it's a way to increase bioavailability, but I don't think it's working in this case. And then right here on the side, it says highly bioavailable. Well, highly bioavailable, based on what?
Right.
Based on what?
That's where you see it as just a little bit of a marketing term. And then it just puts an asterisk on it and says, these have not been evaluated by the FDA. You know, again, just showing you like they're just putting something on there that sounds great and helps their marketing. Just
another great example though. You see how it's in liquid? It's in aqueous form, there's water. So it tells you better consume within 30 days of opening because of stability reasons. So there's bacterial contamination that can occur. Obviously, the active ingredients start to degrade rather rapidly. I'm not a fan of that product whatsoever.
Right.
I wonder how much.
Hold that specifically because it has on there the highly bioavailable.
Right, right. All right. So let's talk about routes of administration, right? So when you talk about bioavailability, it has to do mostly with absorption, but everything else we just talked about, absorption. So how do we improve absorption? Like, what do we do there? Number one, everything has to go into solution to be absorbed, and it starts in the stomach. So powders, capsules, soft gels, it will all get into the stomach. Well, actually, the powders are mixing in water, so it's going into solution even before we get it to our stomach. But it gets down in there, mixes in the stomach, in the sludge, it dissolves, it comes out. And depending on other characteristics, where is it going to start absorbing? Some things will absorb in the stomach right then and there. Other things, most drugs, most pharmaceuticals, most dietary supplements have to pass into the small intestine where the pH is a little higher. Because in the stomach, the pH is very, very acidic. It's around like 1 or 2. But by the time it gets into the small intestine, it's more closer to neutral, still slightly acidic, but it can absorb. And that's where most of the absorption is taking place. So oral supplements, things taken by mouth, such as powders, capsules, soft gels, liquids, solutions, all of that, have, generally speaking, a very high chance of absorbing, right? And it's super convenient, super cost effective. For the most part, very stable. Things in capsules, soft gels, powders, very stable. Things in solution, typically not as stable. That's why I'm not a fan. If you watch our thing on collagen, I'll explain why powder form is superior. But all of this is compared to the gold standard of bioavailability as an injectable, whereas an IV is considered 100%. Where and then intramuscular and subcutaneous are going to be slightly less, but still very high. And so that's a big part of it. The next phase of it would be distribution. So now where is this pharmaceutically active ingredient or dietary supplement ingredient? Where is it going? Now that it's absorbed, where is it going? It's going to be distributed throughout the body. So it needs to get to its target site of action, right? And that's ultimately what we're looking for, right? And so that's a lot of times, a lot of the unknowns, right? Like what's happening there. And then for sure, it has to metabolize. Most of the times it'll go through the liver and it'll get ready, it'll get converted into metabolites, and then it's going to be excreted. That whole process is what makes up bioavailability. Pharmaceutical companies, again, they know this pretty well. The pharmacokinetic profile, they know it very well. Dietary supplement companies have no clue. None, for the most part. What we have done at LiveGoods, we've looked at the ingredients, we've looked at the things that Big Pharma has done, and we've incorporated much of that into our formulation. That's where we're getting our intel. That's how we're coming up with our information. And so an example, right? Like I think the daily essentials pack is a good place to start. So like vitamin D. Vitamin D3 is cholecalciferol. The pharmaceutical equivalent is vitamin D2. That's ergocalciferol. Well, it's been shown in multiple studies that the D3 is superior to the D2, not just based on absorption and bioavailability, but also on the blood levels that it achieves. So it's something about it that's got more effectiveness or more efficacy in hitting the site-specific tissues and that's kind of how we're going through this process, saying what bioavailability. Same thing going and looking at the magnesium. How many forms of magnesium have we heard about? There's a lot. Right. There's many different forms of magnesium. I'm going to just give you quickly how we looked at this. Magnesium glycinate, it's predominantly magnesium glycinate with some magnesium gluconate. Those are highly bioavailable based on studies already performed. We know that. We don't have to do anything more, anything fancy. It is literally in this capsule, just magnesium glycinate and gluconate. There's other forms of magnesium, like magnesium oxide, poorly absorbed. It's not a well-absorbed form of magnesium. There's many other forms, and you can look up the profile and see the absorption and how well each one of these esters or salt forms of magnesium perform. Being glycinate being A, the most studied, B, one of the most highly bioavailable forms. It was a no-brainer for us to go that route. So, and then of course, in the multivitamin, the B vitamins. There's a couple of factors here as well. There's methylation. So methylation helps the people that have a gene variant called MTHFR. MTHFR, if they have that gene variant, they're not able to methylate properly, which is sort of, methylation is just part of a conversion process, it's a chemical conversion process. And so if you can't do that, that's why if you can't methylate properly, then you won't be able to access the active form of B12, folate, and of other forms that need methylation. So
basically taking it would just, you would excrete.
Yeah, you would mostly just eliminate it and not really derive as much benefit from it. But in this case, we put in the methylated form of B12, which is methylcobalamin, as well as the methylated form of folate, so L-methyl-L-folate. And so that helps bypass the step of bioavailability, helps improve bioavailability for anybody out there that may possibly have that gene variant, which Lisa does, she has that gene variant. What else is in the multi? There's a number of things. There's so many different things in the multi and things to think about as far as bioavailability. There's factors like co-administration with other things. So if somebody's on pharmaceutical drugs, like drug interactions, drugs that compete for absorption, that's why we left out calcium. We carved out the magnesium and we put that into a separate supplement. The same thing with the vitamin D. We did that and we paired the D with the K. I know I'm all over the place, I'm sorry. The D and the K are paired because they actually complement each other pretty well. They're both fat-soluble vitamins. But we did carve out the D, we did carve out the magnesium. We didn't want calcium in there because a lot of those can chelate. They combine, they can compete for absorption sites.
Thus decreasing
bioavailability. Now, is there any perfect science on exactly how much that would decrease? Maybe in the pharmaceutical literature somewhere, there might be some studies, but as far as dietary supplement companies providing the actual funding and research and study on it, no, I know that. I seriously doubt it. Even if you look at the most reputable brands, Lisa, you brought this up earlier, some of those big brands that are physician grade, they try to sell to physicians only, they tend to be on the higher end of quality, which is great. But you don't see them making claims about bioavailability.
We'll never see that slapped on there as like an
They really don't, because they know their audience. Their audience in that case are physicians and healthcare practitioners. And they're like, look, we know that that's not entirely accurate. I mean, there's some basis to it, but it's not entirely accurate. It's kind of misleading. It's more of a marketing ploy. And that's kind of, I think that's an important takeaway from all of this. So understand the couple, go ahead. I feel like I'm going to say something.
I was going to say, in the fact before too, the black pepper.
Yeah. Oh,
correct?
good point. Good
We've
point.
added the black pepper to increase the bioavailability
Of curcumin.
Right.
Curcumin. So it can help with that increased absorption as well. All right. I know I've been scatterbrained on this topic because I think it's a big one. I love this topic.
Right. I was going to like kind of sum it up.
Well, let me go over a couple of other quick things. I went over route of administration. I want to talk about the physical and chemical properties that do impact bioavailability.
I'll help dumb it down if it gets a little.
All right, solubility is important. So how does it go into solution, right? Is it fat soluble? Is it water soluble? Tends to be that fat soluble things tend to absorb better, right? There's more liberators. Like that glutathione I showed you, water soluble. So they put it into liposomes, which means that liposomes will help get across the fat soluble membranes. So solubility is a big deal, and which is known. We know that. That's pretty well known. You can pretty much find that on almost all dietary supplement ingredients, as well as pH. You want to know if it's acidic or it's basic. That dictates it a little bit. The rate of dissolution, again, being in powder form and capsule, it's in powder, which means it's most stable. Most stable. So it doesn't. We don't really have to worry about it dissolving, because we know it readily dissolves. There's no real challenge to it. So that's a big one. And then let's see, what else did I have on there? Particle size. Oh, I did want to bring that up, particle size. So we're seeing and hearing more about nanoparticles and reducing particle sizes. Trying to think of an example. Magnesium, I think you said the other day, you were talking about some company that has a nano-sized magnesium.
And I get this question a lot for collagen.
But the magnesium is an interesting one, because I said, why would you mess with it? We know it's bioavailable. Don't mess with it. Why would we have to go through some chemical process to get it down to a nanoparticle, 1/1000th of a meter. Like, it doesn't even matter. And in times, there's actually now warnings out there for some things that are going in the nanoparticle world. So there's some technology on the topical skin, because skin's hard, right, with particle size and weight. But nano, like titanium dioxide in sunscreens, they're saying be careful with that. The whole point of titanium dioxide in sunscreen is supposed to stay on top and act as a physical barrier to sunlight. And now in the case of the nanoparticles, really starting to seep into your tissues and absorbing, and which is kind of a problem. And you saw titanium dioxide is now banned in some supplements in California, in the EU, and maybe even New York here soon. But yeah, so anyway, so reducing particle size can have its pros and cons. Like in our CBD cream, we went with a nanoparticle CBD because we actually want that CBD particle, that cream to that molecule to get in, to drive into the tissue. So it has its pros and cons. You just need to know what you're doing. And I would never want to just jump in just because someone advertises nanoparticle size. I don't think that's entirely always true. But particle size does matter in absorption, so it does matter. It's important to know that as well. I think that covers it at least. I just want to go over those things. And then stability was my last point, and I figured we could do examples and take questions.
Okay, yeah, so, I mean, in a nutshell, we could basically put on our label, highly bioavailable.
Yeah.
Right, because we've taken the most bioavailable ingredients or the forms of the ingredients and put them in.
Yeah.
So again, when I get the email that's like, well, how does this compare to this of ours? Because this one says it's got 95% bioavailability. Well, now you know. I mean, that label can be put on anything based on the bioavailability of the ingredients that you use, but like Ryan said, like this supplement is not going into specific testing for bioavailability, but in the ingredients that we have chosen, where it's necessary, we have chosen the most bioavailable forms of the ingredients.
And some of the ingredient suppliers may actually provide bioavailability studies. That may exist. Some examples of branded ingredients, like if you look at KSM66 or ashwagandha in our super greens, that is a very large brand that every time you order from them, you're getting exactly what they say you're providing. You have Velocitol, you have Polynol, you have Apriflex, all in these collagen peptides, all branded ingredients. So sometimes these companies will go an additional step in studies to make sure that what they're saying, it all really is it's about brand promotion. They're really trying to say, this is why our ingredient is better than a generic, just off the shelf dietary supplement ingredient. So, all right, real quick, while she's looking at some questions, stability though, I do want to bring this up because again, it has to do with bioavailability. If you have a product that does not have any shelf life, if it starts day one of the manufacturing, it has 100% call it, but then after day 10 or 20, that's down to 75%, and then the degradation process continues, we're in trouble. You're not going to have much of that bioavailability to even give the body what it needs or what you're hoping to provide it with. So there's two real things that happen in degradation or in like lack of or loss of shelf life or stability. Hydrolysis is the biggest and the main culprit. That's where it interacts with water. A lot of our pharmaceuticals and a lot of our ingredients and dietary supplements are like esters or paired with salts. And any introduction of water anywhere, even a high humidity environment, grabs a water molecule, it goes through hydrolysis and it just renders it basically inactive and it starts to break down rapidly. That's why I don't like supplements in fluid or in aqueous solutions for those reasons and for bacterial contamination. So stability is a big deal. I am pretty much a stickler on that. So, and then the next one is oxidation. So some things will oxidize in the presence of oxygen. So when you open a product, you really should try to turn through it basically as fast as possible. I mean, because as the more it's interacting with oxygen, especially if you're keeping it, I always tell people, don't keep it in the bathroom because you have three things going on. You have temperature, light, and humidity. So you've got those three things cooking in there. And those are the three that will really, really rapidly degrade any active ingredient. So just keep that in mind for bioavailability purposes.
Ready for some questions?
Yes, let's go. Well, hold on. Let me give a couple examples. D3, D2, glycinate, methylation. What else did I write? I just want to put a couple of... No, that's it. All right, let's do it.
All right, Michelle's just saying, gloves that we're talking about the MTHFR, they have it in their family. If you don't know if you have it, it's just a simple test from your doctor, and it's always very good to know. But yes, methylated form's important. No injectables.
We're unable to do injectables, fall under FDA for drug.
Correct. What if a person has high folate? Should they take a multivitamin with iron?
Well, we're not going to go into specific drug interactions because it's just, there's a lot of factors that would, you can email me, by all means, I'll help you answer specific questions to you. Oh, one other thing too, talking about variability, imagine the patient that's on a proton pump inhibitor for like heartburn or acid reflux. You know, you're altering the pH of the stomach, and most things do need that pH, that pH 1 and 2. So when you have that pH higher, now you're messing with, again, the ability of things to absorb or break down or go into solution, whatever it might be. So there are a lot of drug interactions, and then
that decrease the bioavailability.
Of certain nutrients. There are a ton. So again, if you have any questions on that, happy to help. And then of course, there's drug-induced nutrient depletion, which we did another Zoom on. You should watch that one that shows where the body actually increases the excretion of certain minerals and vitamins. So
but it just shows too, like this term highly bioavailable, it's very individual. I mean, it's, our bodies are so unique and different, you can't compare. It's too broad of a topic to take it. The children's multivitamin, are they chelated?
What's what?
The children's multivitamin.
Oh yeah, no, we'll use chelated as much as possible. We always try to, when you say chelate, usually what we're talking about is chelating like with an amino complex or so all right, like chelation just means when you bind or attach to. So like for instance, magnesium glycinate is magnesium chelated to glycine, an amino acid. But I don't want to confuse people with the chelation of where we're competing for absorption sites earlier.
But the B vitamins in the children's multi are the methylated form.
Oh yes, of course. Oh yes.
What is question about the bioavailability of a different form of magnesium malate?
Malate's good. Yeah, malate's good. I don't have any problem with magnesium malate. I think malate's great. I like magnesium glycinate and gluconate better, but again, malate not a problem. But was that the last one? Hold on. Yeah, David, that's a funny one. I know. I hear you. Oh, there will be some variability too, guys. Whenever you're selecting ingredients, especially botanicals, there can be some difference in coloration. That's normal. So there was a question about the vitamins, the old vitamins to new vitamins, the different color, not a problem. Same ingredients, just different color. It's normal.
Something about the particle size.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I wouldn't get caught up too much in the collagen particle size. You know, what happens with collagen peptides and a lot of ingredients like amino acids, they do break down before being absorbed. So they'll get broken down, and like the essential aminos, the collagen peptides, what happens is the body will leave those peptides or amino acids, and then they will get absorbed, and then they can reassemble. And that's kind of the nature of the beast there. That's why with essential amino acids, if you don't take all the essential amino acids and only, say for instance, you only took the branched chain, which is only 3 of the essentials, if you took those, the body will absorb, go into the blood, and the body's going to look for all the other essentials at the same time and not see them, and really start to break down other tissue, probably muscle tissue, to free up those aminos, because they have to work sort of in unison and concert with one another to carry out the function of what their essential functions are. So hope that makes sense. But the same thing where the collagen is a triple helix, where like, I know you guys probably from science class remember DNA is double helix, triple helix. It's very unique structure in collagen. The size does matter, but it also does break down. If you notice right here where we say that they're hydrolyzed collagen, and what I just said earlier about hydrolyzing is a form of breaking down, that's what this is all about. If you took the whole collagen protein, you would never be able to absorb it. The new way is hydrolyzed, and I hope that makes sense. That's why we're using hydrolyzed collagen, because it will absorb better, it will break down better, absorb better, reassemble better at the site of where you want it to do it. And that's ultimately what we're trying to say earlier is, it's one thing to absorb, but it's a whole nother to distribute and get to the tissue where it needs to be to exert its clinical effect.
Okay, perfect. And this is just like a common question that I get. This is why I wanted to do this topic. But the question is, what is the bioavailability of the current protein and the future protein, whey protein coming out? That can't be determined because it's very unique from your body. So if I drink a glass of our protein powder and Ryan drinks a glass of our protein powder, because our bodies are different, the bioavailability is going to be different. Knowing though that we use the most bioavailable ingredients in our products to help with the bioavailability of our products.
Let me take that a step further.
Yes.
So on protein, we should do this on a Zoom too.
Okay.
On protein, what we do know is the dry weight basis, and that's been the problem with like plant versus whey for many years. Is that plant was never really able to get anywhere close to the 90% dry weight basis of protein. So like if you weighed out how many grams of protein per weight of like powder, right? Like dry weight basis. So now the plant base, our fermented peat is high. It's like somewhere around 88%. I think whey is in the low 90s, depending on the type of whey. But again, protein is determined based on its amino acid content. So is it a complete protein, which means does it have all the essential amino acids? That protein goes into the stomach. Those proteins break down into their respective amino acids. They are then absorbed, and then those amino acids are used in the body in the function they were designed for. So when you take essential amino acids, it is doing something very similar to the whole protein. Very similar. As a matter of fact, some studies have shown to say that you can count your essential amino acid score at least 1-to-1. You can count your amino acid intake as 1-to-1. Like I took 1 gram of essentials, that means I got 1 gram of protein. But some are showing more because you're actually loading those essential aminos and the body's able to use those for muscle protein synthesis. And so it's so impactful, it's so effective. It's one of my favorite tools. But again, want to make that clear. Protein will break down in the gut. It will cleave off those amino acids and it'll absorb, and then it can kind of reassemble and be used.
So I think Shauna,
Lactose, no, there will never be lactose in our product.
I think what Shauna is asking, so she's asking about the mixing of our powders for the best bioavailability. Like, should they be mixed in warm water, cold water? I don't think that matters, correct? Like from our powders, will mixing them a certain way increase or decrease the bioavailability?
So
I think that's what she's
no, it's a good question. It comes back to that solubility. So the reds and the greens, you'll see they go right into solution, but then they start to precipitate out. It wouldn't matter to me if you drank it as ready mix, slam it back, or if it was still kind of sludgy. And I know it's not an attractive term, but even if you drank it sludgy, it's still sort of in solution. By the time it gets into the gut, it's churning, it's twisting, it's moving around. There's a lot of acid in there. Things are happening. It'll be dissolved, no problem. Like you'll see that with the collagen right now. And we're improving the solubility of the collagen actually, as we speak. But you'll see sometimes it's hard to mix it in room temperature water. If you heat the water, it goes right into solution. If you drank clumps of collagen, it really wouldn't matter. It would get into the gut. Again, that sludge mix would totally dissolve it, no problem.
So it's like what works best for you.
Yeah.
Someone may have joined late. What is bioavailability? Another topic. Yes, but it's how well your body absorbs and uses a supplement when it enters the body.
Well, rate and extent to which it absorbs.
Okay.
So how fast and how much?
Jenny says this is better than college biology. Great.
Oh, we got to go.
Yep. Okay. And then.
All right.
Perfect. So a lot of these questions, if your question did not get answered, it's because it really didn't pertain to the topic, and that's fine. Go ahead and email those questions to me, lisa@livegood.com. We tend to only answer questions that are relevant to the topic we are discussing, but do remember the last Monday of every month, we have a live Q&A where we will answer your random product questions.
All right, awesome.
All right, well, thank you guys for joining. I hope this made sense and you could get a little better understanding about the term bioavailability and when people put it on, our companies put it on supplement containers, what the relevance actually is to that. All right?
All right, you guys rock. Have a great rest of the week. Happy Monday, everybody.
Take care.
Later.